how much can we really take from the Long Island game? We'll take one last look at Saturday and then turn the page to UCF. That's coming up here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right. You heard the voice lady say it. Your team every day. Locked On Horned Frogs. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or free and available wherever it is you get your podcast. Next to me is Matt Jennings, freelance writer that covers TCU football, and he joins us weekly. So, Matt, TCU did not run the ball effectively on Saturday, which on face value seems very bad because they're playing an undersized FCS opponent in Long Island. I have seen this thought floated around that, don't want to put anything on tape against the Sharks. You're just trying to execute with what you can, keep things very vanilla, win the football game, get out of there. So LIU was stacking the box all night. They were being very aggressive, blitzing the run. Their coach, Ron Cooper, obviously knew coming into this game, we don't have a chance, just straight up. So we got to come with heat. Is there anything to that, or do you feel like there's real issues with what they're working with up front right now?
I think there's a positive and a negative to take away in terms of the run game that we've seen from the first two games. I would say the positive is I'm pretty sure Cam Cook is a dude. And I tweeted about this on Saturday. The man is slippery. And so even in situations where the run blocking is not super clean, he can make something happen. He can make a guy miss. He can break tackles. Great. That's all awesome. And I think it's going to help them even when the picture is muddy in the blocking. The bad news is the offensive line might be bad. The offensive line might be bad, and we need to kind of be ready for that because, Dominique Johnson on his first touchdown of the night had Colton Deary get pushed back into his lap, and he has to kind of navigate around that. And it's just to your point, this should not be happening against a Long Island team that, you were expecting to be able to kind of physically overwhelm. Now, that's a little bit of picking nits because it's a game you won 45-0 and a game that you kind of let off the gas in the second half. So that's fine. I don't think the idea of they're holding stuff back or they're keeping things vanilla. I'm with a different offense, I might think that's true, but this is an offense that is very, this isn't like a Jimbo Fisher 3-inch thick playbook, right? Not that that's not a compliment to Jimbo by any means, to be very clear, but the offense is predicated on being simple and going fast. So I don't think it's we've got stuff that we're saving up for. It's more of, I don't think they're executing very well on the offensive line. As they continue to get more snaps together and build that chemistry, great for them to get some confidence and a couple wins early on in the season. It's great. This week will offer a more significant test for sure.
I think so they seem to be good at pass blocking.
Yeah.
I feel like Mike Nichols has been pretty solid in the run game, and that's about it. Carson Bruno and Colton Deary seem to struggle. Remington Strickland, I don't really have enough of a sample size on. But I feel like there's a couple ways this could go. So you could go to, it feels like they kind of want to go full air raid, but they're just not totally committed to it. They're doing a lot of the, quick passing game stuff. It's a lot more RPO centric than the old school leech tree deal, but it's kind of those same principles. And I feel like you have to really throw out, at this point, you have to throw out everything Kendall did at Arkansas.
Yeah.
Because it seems like he was making an offense that fit his head coach and fit, funny enough, KJ Jefferson, who's coming to town this week. But I just believe if there's two ways that his offenses have been successful running the football. It's either with a mobile quarterback where you can even the math with the fact that like the defense has to account for guy in the gun, which it appears Josh Hoover's just not going to be that person, which is fine. Like, he's not going to become suddenly a dude who can run around all over the place. Or it's a lot of misdirection, draw plays, counter stuff. Let's get the defense flowing one way, we cut back the other. I can buy into an idea of like, hey, we'll grow into that as the year goes on, but it doesn't solve the issue of like there's still going to be times where you just have to straight up push people off the line of scrimmage and get yardage. So I don't know how they're going to fix that. And I do like that it seems like they've been more committed to heavier packages in the red zone. I hope that continues, but I don't know what it's going to look like, week to week. And so staying with that, has your thoughts about this team's ceiling changed at all based on what they've done / what you've seen around the rest of the league through 2 weeks of football?
I think so. Because even if the execution in the red zone and just with your scoring opportunities hasn't been all the way to what you want, I've seen flashes of stuff that I think can make you cautiously optimistic. To your point, they've done the heavier packages around the goal line. There's been less what I would call cutesy stuff, right? Cam Cook's first touchdown run, and then there's a little bit of cutesy to that, right? Because there's pre-snap motion, they line him up at fullback, and then kind of, but it's still you're running between the tackles, right? There's or you're just doing simple like outside zone stuff, right? It gets less. There's just less of the let's get a receiver, getting the ball on a sweep to the short side of the field, right? There's less of that we're seeing at least over the first couple weeks, which I am personally in favor for. They're either like they're basically saying let's just run our offense, let's just run what we know we're good at, which is a thing that I think that I certainly was kind of, just agonizing for them to do a lot of last year. And so that approach being at least looking a little bit different, I think is a thing to be cautiously optimistic for. You need to convert those opportunities. I think as you continue doing that, you will convert more of those opportunities than constantly resorting to gadget plays. So that's a thing that gives me some level of optimism. And then to your point, the stuff going on around the league, Utah has looked great, but Cam Rising is hurt again. We really don't know what his status is going to be going forward. Kansas State, I think Tulane made a great hire with John Summerall. I think they're going to be a good team, but I think the fact that they kind of took Kansas State to the wire and very well could have won that game makes you kind of think twice about Kansas State. Certainly, I thought that they were a team that could have possibly run all over the league. Now I'm kind of rethinking that. Arizona, had a tough game last week as well. They were another team that people were kind of really high on. Colorado is, for anyone who's kind of picking them as a dark horse Big 12 title contender, I think we can put that to bed after last week. Like there's just so much, even in Oklahoma State coming this close, and if Arkansas hadn't made a million mistakes, coulda, shoulda, woulda lost that game. And got outplayed in pretty much every way except for like those few big mistakes for Arkansas, right? And so all the teams that you kind of were holding up as like, oh, like these are the teams that are kind of the assumed contenders. Now you have major second thoughts about. And that's true across college football. Like outside of Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, everybody that the royal we kind of thought was had big ideas for, whether that's Oregon or Florida State or Notre Dame or whoever, you're kind of like, okay, there's already cracks forming in that facade, right? And so that creates an environment where a team like TCU, who maybe wasn't as highly thought of in the preseason in the Big 12 standings, you're like, this is a league that really probably is going to be pretty wide open. Which, so that's the other thing that I think plays in their favor in terms of like, what is their ceiling? Their ceiling is, they can be competitive and continue getting a little bit better in the red zone, there's no like stonewall obstacles in their way to like being in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, I'll hedge and I'll say I'll wait until like 9:30 Saturday night to kind of really make a proclamation about it. But I do think, and Kansas is in that conversation too, of teams that you thought could be really good and pick it up into by Illinois. I feel like things are week to week and matchup based a lot more than people believe. So I don't know if like, oh man, this means suddenly we should be favorites when we go to Arrowhead. Like that's 3 weeks away. Who knows? But I get why people see these things happening and say, well, why not us if we can get going as the year goes on. Okay, so defensively, I wish that the defense had like an old school time clock on Saturday that they could have like punched in and punched out, because that was a yeoman's performance. It was just, not a lot of flashy plays, but taking care of it. A couple times Long Island got into plus territory, they sniffed it out. I want to talk about the linebackers for a second though, because this was a spot last year that was pretty rough overall, except for like Namdi Obaizor kind of emerged as a dude. But Johnny Hodges looks a lot better. I liked Caleb Alarms-Orr. Like I liked what I saw from him. Namdi's been good. There's just, it feels like there's legitimate depth at this spot, Matt, where there wasn't this time a year ago.
Agreed. Absolutely. Obaizor, I believe, leads the team in tackles for loss right now with 4, and has continued to be a confident leader for that group and for the defense as a whole. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he's the green dot helmet player for now that they've kind of instituted the helmet communication, which kind of, speaks to the confidence that the coaching staff has in him. And then, I like what they have. Johnny Hodges, Johnny Hodges is very much a known commodity, but a guy who can be physical, a guy who can help you make some big plays in the running game. I do like Alarms-Orr coming over this season from Cal, and he made some nice plays on Saturday. You had, they've got some tweeners at the position too, with whether that's Marcel Brooks or Devin Deal or whoever, who are doing some pass rush stuff as well. It's absolutely, it's a position that you feel better about. And I think that's because a year ago, when you had this 3-3-5 base alignment, you had to have more of them on the field on every single play, and they had to do a little bit of everything. Whereas now, because you've got the 2 true linebackers in the stud position, you've got a little bit more specialization, which allows for players like Brooks to, kind of show what they can do in a more specific niche way. And then you need less depth at those like traditional linebacker spots, because there's only 2 of them on the field most of the time, right? So that's helping them out as well. And we talked about this already, but they're just so aggressive. And this goes for every position. Like it's more reminiscent of a Gary Patterson defense, and in some ways, in terms of trying to create those negative plays, trying to put pressure on the quarterback. And it's just, that's refreshing, I think, and it fits more the personnel that they have than what they were trying to do under Joe Gillespie. The flip side of that, as we know from the Gary Patterson era, is it means you gotta get home and you gotta wrap up when you get that opportunity to make that tackle in space. Because if you don't, there might not be another second level defender to clean things up. For a minute. And that's one thing that I think will probably be a big factor against UCF on Saturday.
When we come back, Jeremy Payne, is he your number 2 running back? We'll get to that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. You ever get to a restaurant, you're meeting your friend there, and you say 12:15, but you get that dreaded text when you get there at 12:15. It's like, actually, I'll be there in about 10 minutes. You're like, man, what am I going to do for 10 minutes? So you open up Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Listen, I found a new way for you to waste time on your phone. It's Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Download the game. It's free. It's mobile. has 100% play. It's 100% playable offline with a special offer code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, to receive a free boost to your program. Just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look up in the app stores. You get to recruit. You get to fundraise. You get to build facilities. You get to do everything that a modern college coach would do, and you get to build your program from the ground up. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Try it out today. Again, that's in the App Store or Google Play. You can play it offline. You can play it online. Ultimate College Football Head Coach, proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So, yeah, Cam Cook has brought some encouraging returns. They've had Dominic Johnson out there some, Trey Sanders a few times as well. But a freshman that got some time at the end of the ball game Saturday was Jeremy Payne. And his stat line wasn't eye-popping, like 8 carries for 30 yards. He did have a touchdown run that was called back because of a holding penalty. He looked good, though. And Sonny Dykes said after the game, he was like, look, we're looking for somebody who can, take some of these carries. And he made an impression this evening. So, Matt, I don't know if, this week he's going to become the guy, but he showed something where there's a need. And, maybe he can usurp, these two vets in front of him eventually with that explosiveness and just his ability to kind of change the pace from that position.
Agreed. I think there was excitement for both him and for Nate Palmer, that two recruits coming out of this year's class that they were really excited about. And Payne seems to be the one who's certainly getting the most opportunities early. And you saw that against. It's funny looking at this drive chart in the fourth quarter. It's like 4th and 1. Jeremy Payne rush for 3 yards, first down rush, second down rush, third down rush and conversion, first down rush for 9 yards, and then that touchdown that got wiped off the board because of the holding penalty that you alluded to. They need some consistency at the position. I think, again, we know what Cam Cook is, and he's kind of your starter, your number one guy. Trey Sanders and Dominic Johnson, I think they probably view a little bit more as role players for specific situational football scenarios, right? So then who becomes your true backup, right? And so if Payne can do that, then that's a really great thing. I think we've already talked about, they seem less interested in running the ball than maybe we might have expected. According to College Football Insiders, their rush rate over expected on offense is, which essentially they are running the ball 11.8% less than expected in kind of expected rushing scenarios is essentially which they are like top 10 or bottom 10 in that, depending on how you look at it, depending on how important you think it is in terms of how often you're running the ball. But it's just not what they're doing very, very much. And so, but when they come in those situations where they have to get it, or they, like Saturday, they need to kind of bleed the clock and get it and get the game to triple zeros. It looks like he's going to be able to help them do that, which is awesome.
Were there any other young guys or maybe just off the radar type of players that impressed you when they got reps in that LIU game?
Not a young guy, but I thought it was good to see JoJo Earl out there. He got the pass from which I tweeted this on Saturday and then I deleted it because I was like, wait, hold on, is that right? It was actually Savion Williams' first pass attempt. We've been talking about it for like 3 years, but it was his first complete pass attempt and completion at TCU, and it went to JoJo Earl and went for a first down and got him into a goal to go scenario, and then he caught the touchdown just after that. And so it was nice to see that. That was a transfer that a year ago didn't maybe yield the results right away that you wanted. I think that's injuries affected that a little bit. And I think we already know what they have at those outside receiver positions with Besh and with Williams. And now McAllister, he made some nice plays on Saturday. I think if you can get some more action from those slot players, it opens some things up for you in the passing game. So that was nice to see. And it was nice to see Jordan Bailey make a couple nice plays as well. He's another guy that I think everybody's really high on, and I'm kind of floored that he hasn't gotten the ball more to this point. And so those would be guys that I would point out as like they just open things up for what you want to do offensively.
They got to give Savion another chance. I mean, it was a completed pass, but I feel like I've been hearing about the lore of his arm strength for a long time. And I guess he made a calculated decision because nobody bit. Like it was a weird play. The safety, there were two safeties back there. Neither of them, both of them stayed home. But anyway, he just kind of lofted it up. So we need to give Savion another opportunity to really just rip one in there if he's truly a Beast Texas guy like they all say he is. Because that one attempt was, he could do better. I think he can, and we'll have to give him another shot. Maybe on a double pass where his feet are set instead of, running one direction.
Well, and not like inside. That I think that was like from inside.
It was in the red zone.
There was there was no opportunity for him to just rip one deep. So maybe like after you move the chains once in your own territory, and you're between the 35 and the 50, and you're like, okay, let's first down, 1st and 10, let's take a shot. Let's just take a shot.
Remember when they set up that great play? This is not what you're talking about, but they set up that great play to Kenny Hill against West Virginia where they threw the screen one way and then all the O linemen released his side and he just followed them all the way in and then he hit a little spin move near the goal line to score. That was a good time.
They went to that well in different ways so many times that year because they did a similar deal to it was Cavante Turpin. Oh, no, excuse me. It was Turpin to Shewell Analua against Texas a few weeks later. And then I think they threw a pass to Kenny Hill again in the bowl game against Stanford. They love Sonny Comby, man. Probably not going to make it out the year as the head coach at Louisiana Tech, but the man could draw up a double pass. I will give him that.
He could. That's true. He loved giving his receivers opportunity to throw the football. All right, we'll turn the page here in a little bit and get into UCF and the first big test of the season. That's coming up here on Locked On Horned Frogs. Are you tired? Are you an adult? So, yeah, probably. You just talk to other adults about how tired you are. Crack open a 5-Hour Energy. You might be like, Steven, I've seen 5-Hour Energy for years on convenience stores. Good news. It's now on the interwebs. Fire up the Google machine and go to 5hourenergy.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. I've been staying up late podcasting, burning the midnight oil. I used to think I was a night owl. In college, I would stay up late and it wouldn't bother me. Now I've realized I had no responsibilities in my life at that time, and I was also 21 years old. Now I'm older, and I have more responsibilities, so I need help. I need caffeine, and that's why I use 5-Hour Energy. They have all kinds of different flavors. You can build a 12-pack. You can build a 24-pack. Whatever your heart desires, it's there for you. 5-Hour Energy. If you need to get through the day at the office, if you need to get up early and get to an 8 a.m. soccer game like I'm going to have to this Saturday, 5-Hour Energy is the place to go. 5hourenergy.com. You can now buy it online. Okay, so Matt, well, let me ask you this actually, because I think I'm going to do a fuller segment on this tomorrow. Do you think Kendall Briles helps the defense this week? Does his knowledge of KJ Jefferson tip the scales at all in this ball game?
I think probably a little bit. I'm not sure how much, but it cannot hurt to have someone with a pretty darn in-depth scouting report of KJ's game. Not that it's a secret what he is. He's a I think he's a 5th or 6th year senior at this point, but to have a little bit of inside knowledge about his any tendencies or tells he might have could be beneficial for them for sure, especially when I think KJ's game kind of is going to require TCU to take a slightly different strategy than what we've seen from them over the first 2 weeks, because their aggressiveness and could come back to bite them against KJ if they're not able to keep contain. I'm personally of the opinion that you got to get him to beat you from the pocket, because on designed runs, when he's going to be a designed part of the running game, like that's a given. So you have to make the math work there, and that's just going to be hard on its own. In the passing game, TCU's already got burned a couple times over the last couple weeks with quarterbacks scrambling and making plays off schedule, getting first downs, and KJ Jefferson's going to, like, that is where he lives. That's where he thrives. That's where he can really hurt you. And so you have to, even though it's probably against Avalos's, DNA, I would think that they would want to avoid really trying to get after him very much and try and make him stay in the pocket and really not even try and pursue him and make him throw to win the game. Sell out against the run game in general, but when in passing situations, say, all right, like, we are going to trust our pass coverage and we're going to give you time in the pocket because we'd rather have you there than bowling over our linebackers in the open field.
What are your, so I've watched some, highlights of their first two games. They played Sam Houston State and I believe New Hampshire. Malzahn's doing some really cool stuff in the run game. I mean, he's cooking up like some very creative things. I also agree. You have to force them to pass. I think they're better in the passing game than they've shown the first 2 weeks. I feel like they just kind of knew they could do whatever they wanted to running the football. But what are your keys? You talked about KJ, like limiting his yardage, staying, in contain, keeping him in the pocket. What are your other keys to winning this football game, getting to 3-0?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, make in the passing game, make KJ Jefferson beat you from the pocket. If he's able to throw on the move, or if he's able to just get outside the pocket and just create and pick up first downs or more, then you're already behind. So I think that's part of it. And then I think, to your point, Gus is like the king of a power run game that also makes defenses think. Like, it's not mindless. Like, people, when they think power or physical run game, they just think it's like hitting somebody in the mouth. It's like, no, to your point, like they're doing counters, they're doing lots of gap runs, they're doing misdirection, they're doing motions, they're doing sweeps, they were doing some draw plays against Sam Houston and some delayed handoffs and all this stuff. Like, they are going to make you think, and that, to say nothing of the thing that really kind of put Gus on the map, which was like the zone read with Cam Newton 14 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like, putting defenders in conflict while also hitting them in the mouth in the run game. Like, that's going to be really, you have to be able to play disciplined, which is something that TCU has not shown a lot of, or has not shown that they are great at so far this season on defense. So you got to play disciplined in terms of your assignments, and you also just got to wrap up. Like, that's the thing, is like, you can make the right read, and then again, if there's nothing behind you and you miss, then there's so much green grass that, their playmakers can make you pay. So, like, those are the things that stand out to me, is just discipline. This is like, those are boring keys, but it really is like discipline with your eyes in the run game, and then wrapping up when you get to the ball. That's the thing. When UCF has the ball, those are the things that I think are important. So again, to me, I think your game plan is you're kind of selling out to stop the run, and you probably leave Travis Broughton and Lamarian James, and you say, y'all are playing one-on-one for a lot of this game. We're going to try and win with numbers in the run game, and we're going to try and play disciplined, and we're going to dare KJ to beat us from the pocket, and hope that works. And I think that could work pretty darn well. Again, you got to wrap up when you get to the ball. That's a big thing.
We'll see it happen on Saturday. Conference play is starting. We'll be here next week. I'll be here tomorrow. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast. Subscribe.